Hi, welcome to the House Medium. I'm Adele Levine, your House Medium, and we are back. Whew, I have so much to talk to you all about, and I hope everyone just, if you're playing this, can you see my lights in the back? My lights aren't on. Come on, I need my little lights on. You can watch this podcast episode on YouTube. I can't always do a video. Sometimes people don't want to be on a video. Sometimes I don't want to be on a video. But I have a lot to go over. I have a lovely episode for you today. So if you are in the mood to kind of feel like uplifted healing vibes, this is your episode mixed with paranormal. Let's step into the Medium Brew Cafe. And I am excited to report that I can taste coffee again. Yay! I can taste it again. So I am drinking coffee. Not to say I haven't been enjoying my teas, because I have. I have been doing teas at night, lavender tea. So what I do is I get lavender leaves. Is it leaves or like seeds? Anyway, you get the lavender. You can get it off of Amazon. You scoop it, you boil it in water, and then you get a strainer and you strain out the little leaves, and you have the lavender. So I've been doing that with I love Harry and forget the name. They come in silk tea bags. I'm forgetting the name. I'll look it up for you guys. Hold on. I'm going to look it up right now because I'm trying to be on top of it, because I've had people say, what are you drinking and stuff? Obviously, because I talk about this. But why? Oh my God. Like, why? I think it's Harry, and my Google is being a jerk. Why are you being such a jerk, Google? First of all, I use chat these days. I'm having a little weirdness as usual. Anyway, maybe by the end of this. So you can get it's like a ginger tea basically. And I do that at night to kind of calm myself and to help myself get into the state, which is what I want to get into. But I've missed my coffee, and here it is. I finally can taste it. I couldn't taste it. For those of you who didn't know, I got COVID for the first time. And it took away my taste. And I can finally taste the coffee. Let me tell you, the coffee before tasted like water with a coffee hint of coffee flavor. Almost like if someone gave you water and said, "Oh, this is water coffee." Like this is a poppy with a water flavor, or something. Like this is not sparkling. This is just some tap water with a coffee hint. That's what it tasted like before. Anyway, I have a lot to talk to you about in the Medium Brew Cafe. I've been on a really new area of my site. Some of you may have heard last podcast where I'm talking about healing. I think I want to be clear that I'm getting into physical healing and understanding it. Long ago, I've shared this a few times, I felt like a being, or I saw a being approach me and ask me if I wanted to learn how to heal. It was an alien being. I said no. It disappeared. And then it said, "Are you sure?" And I said yes. And I went out my door and broke my foot. And I was 30 something, almost 40, never had been in the hospital, never had any kind of chronic pain, never broke anything. And I kind of got a real understanding of what it's like to be trapped in your body. Grew up around chronic illness, and I had lots of family members who died from illnesses. But myself, I kind of always knew that being in a hospital was one of my biggest fears. Getting sick was one of my biggest fears. And when I had a child who decided he wanted to come early, couldn't wait. Anyway, I ended up in a hospital, because I remember having a feeling that was going to happen, that I was going to end up in the hospital. And I had a prediction he was going to come early. I even got the nursery done early, and I was right. But everyone kept reassuring me, people have babies every day, blah, 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 blah. This is what is hard when you have an intuition. What also is hard is knowing the difference between your intuition and your fears. And my intuition kept going, I don't think you understand. This is what I feel. A week later, he tried to come early. I had to be bed rested. I had gotten the nursery done right the week before. Anyway, follow your intuition, people. That's one of the lessons. The other thing is, I want to be clear that what I'm discussing with you today and everyone, is about the physical healing. I resisted it for a long time. And what I started to do is I posted my first class on Patreon. Shout out to all my Patreon peeps. And if you're not on Patreon, what are you doing? Anyway, also, it's a great way to support the work that I do, but in return, I do energy climates daily. I do speed readings monthly. I post classes for the Sacred Scholar people. I, try to add even other things onto there as well. It's a great little community. That's what I like about it. People can meet and communicate and try to help each other through their own spiritual journey. And I posted my first thing on healing, and I finally succumbed because when I got COVID, I had it not, I hate getting sick. I get real freaked out. And the one thing that I learned is that whenever you want to think about healing, we want the quick fix, right? We want it to be like, okay, give me the thing I need to do, and then bada bing, tomorrow I am better. It is not that. It is not that. And the other thing that I learned is that the spirit, as we know, affects the body. And the spirit is basically the electric board, the energy that runs the body. So kind of look at it like a computer. There's the hardware, there's the software. And what we tend to do is we cater to either the software or the hardware. We don't tend to cater to them at the same time. We don't say, it would be absurd to go into a doctor's office or a hospital and say, listen, I feel like my energy and my spirit is out of whack and it's affecting my back more. They would be like, okay, whatever, do some exercises and you'll be fine. Here's some medicine, take this. And it's not at all to down the medical industry or the health industry at all. I 100% believe in healthcare. I 100% believe in science, medical science. But I do believe the two are going to have to start working together, and we need to look at a different science, a new science, where that the spirit body is just as active and can affect us physically, and vice versa. Now, here's why. This is what happened to me. I ended up in an ambulance after 2 weeks after having COVID. I actually didn't get a cough. I didn't get a fever. I got congested. I got bad stomach. And as I talked about losing my taste. But I was kind of done in 6 days, and I still had lingering nausea, but that was really it. And I was taking a lot of, I was having nausea, and I was taking medication for the congestion. So I think my stomach got messed up. I woke up in the middle of the night with a bad stomach ache, and I immediately started feeling like I couldn't breathe. And I started to feel like I couldn't, I started to kind of go to the floor. And so the ambulance was called. I went to the hospital. They pretty much assessed that I had they said my H2O was perfect. My heart was fine. They did CAT scans. They did x-rays. They did all the things. Everything looked fine. Everything looked great. They said, I think they kind of almost didn't believe me that I didn't have precondition. I said, I don't have preconditions. And they said, you might have a slight bacterial infection, starting to happen at the bottom of your lungs. It could have turned into pneumonia. It's very, very mild. We're going to put you on strong antibiotics. I did. I was a little confused because I was on antibiotics before. But anyway, then the next night I felt the same thing. I couldn't breathe. Go back to the ER. By the way, this particular ER is not my favorite ER. And this time it didn't go so well. I was put into a room. The doctor kind of didn't believe me. I confronted the doctor saying, "You're telling me I'm fine, but I can't breathe." And he just kind of walked away. I on my human side, everyone, because he literally said to me, "Well, you're talking." I mean, that was his energy. I said, "My read on you is that you don't believe me." And he he didn't catch that I said that. And he left, and this woman came, of course, signed the insurance papers. They're quick to do that. And I did. And I said, "Why is this doctor acting like an asshole?" You would have thought that I said he was the worst person on the planet. I mean, you would have thought I went on and on. It wasn't my finest moment, of course. I did say that. She's like, he's only repeating the facts, because that's what she heard him say. Because he said, I'm just telling you the facts, just the facts, ma'am." That's a 1950s reference, by the way. And I said, "Okay." And then they put me in respiratory therapy section. I was by myself, nobody. I said to the respiratory therapist, "I don't think anyone believes me." She ignored me. I said, "I get really bad shakes." She said, "Well, this is a breathing treatment. It should open up your lungs." I do it. I, of course, go into horrible, horrible shakes. I have very strong reaction to antihistamines. I'm a very sensitive to medication in general. My whole life, people would say, like, "This is weird. This should never happen." Yeah, okay. Okay. If I had $1 for every time someone said this should never happen. Anyway, so I go into bad shakes. She never comes back. I'm just alone. They left me in a wheelchair. I get out of the wheelchair, get into the chair, because someone does come and takes me for an x-ray, brings me back. I clearly see someone had been there, because the mask was like, put away. And I was like, okay, so she's just not going to check and see if I'm okay. Right, I get it. This is how we're rolling. Clearly they have been talking, because people kept walking by the room and looking at me. I'm like, am I a celebrity? Am I famous? Why is everyone walking by my room? I was like, you would have thought I would have said, "Listen, mister." I didn't. I just said, "Why is this guy being kind of an asshole?" That's how I said it. Okay, I hear all you nurses are probably like, "Yes, Adela, that was not." I get it. You're right. I get it. I was scared. I couldn't breathe. I was panting, like, like this. Okay, so flash forward. I decide to sit in the chair. I can breathe a little bit better, and this little old lady comes in. She's not a little old lady, older lady. She's not a little old lady, but she's little. And she's mopping, and all of a sudden she decides to tell me all about her work and how she works 7 days a week, two shifts. And she's from the Philippines. I said, "Would you want to go back? Is that a better life for you? Like, why are you killing yourself like this to live in California?" And she said, "No, no, no. I have a family here. I have community here. I have doctors here. I have nurses here. I make way better money. This is much, much, much better for me. I love my job." And I said, "Well, how was it during the heights of COVID?" And she said, "Oh yeah, I watched a lot of people die," which is not helping me, just so everybody knows. However, I said, "Okay." I said, "But did you get it?" She said, "Yes." And I said, "Oh my God, how did you handle it?" And she said, "You have to have a strong mind. You have to have a strong mind. And you have to be kind to people." You have to be kind to people. Okay. All right. And I can't remember if I told this story to everybody. I don't know. If I did, then I'm telling it again. This is how much has been happening, because this has all happened, I don't know, in the past week. So my times are mixed up. So forgive me if you've already heard this story. And I said, "Okay, I get it." And then she proceeds to say, and you have to have a positive attitude, because people won't help you. Now, here's the thing, everyone. I was communicating as I was getting my breathing and realizing, okay, I did kind of wasn't my finest moment. And yes, they were not pleasant at all. They were not compassionate at all. But I could have said it in a different way. I get it. Like, "Hey, here's what I learned. I didn't like being vulnerable. Whenever I get into a certain position, I don't like to be vulnerable. I don't like it. Call it Gen X, call it Adela, whatever. And so if somebody isn't showing compassion, I won't be vulnerable. And I can sense it. They don't even have to say the words. I mean, I'm me. I'm an intuitive. This is what I do. Anyway, she was compassionate in a tough, like, love kind of way. So I listened, and I had earlier been communicating with that realm, with the alien realm, with my parents. I was like, give me what is going on and what do I need to learn from this, because I want to get out of this cycle. Please, please, please. So she said it, and I said, okay, I get it. Now, my backstory real quick. My father is absolutely he was one of the most compassionate people, kind to nurses. I've told you that he was the first dialysis patient in LA. Anyway, he always taught me to be kind to nurses. He, on his deathbed, he made us go get See's candies to give the nurses for Christmas, because he was dying at Christmas. He died on New Year's Eve. That's who he was. So I kind of felt like it was him. Like, Adela, be strong and be kind to these people. So the doctor comes in and he brings a woman, and I'm kind of like, I think he brought her to deal with me. And he brings her in, and I immediately tell him, I'm really sorry, but my mother died of an she died of a blood clot that exploded in her lungs, okay? And 10 days after I was born, she felt dizzy. She was out of breath and died. I've been told that story my whole life. I don't remember not being told that story. My whole life. You're born, she dies. And he goes, oh, okay, I understand. And then he goes, of course, to explain, like this. He goes, listen, it's a lot of science, but, she gave birth, and that's probably the. And I go, yeah, I understand it logically, but I was just freaking out. So I apologize. I go to the front desk and apologize to the girls, because my husband overheard them talking about me, where the girl that I said the asshole thing, she told them, yeah, she said something about an asshole, and I told her, and I was like, not on my watch. So they got caught. However, I didn't care. I said, can you tell her I'm sorry? And I felt like, okay, lesson learned. Now I'm like, okay, I know what's going. I'm fine. It's fine. I can breathe again. He gave me an inhaler. I'm using the inhaler. Flash forward to Valentine's Day. Valentine's night. I start feeling like I can't breathe again, because I went to Trader Joe's. I decided to go out into the world. I'm like, listen, I'm doing better. I'm going to, I haven't exercised like I normally do for a month. I'm going to go out, and I'm panting, and it's getting worse. It's getting worse. It's getting worse. And I tell my husband, I don't want to go do this at 2 in the morning. And I want to go to the other ER, which, by the way, there's one really near us that's okay. And this one is known for being the better one. Before, I didn't think I could make it. We go to the other ER, go into this ER. They're immediately kind. They're immediately like, yeah, sure, I understand, acting like totally normal, not like they're on defensive. I don't know if it was racial in the other one, sexist, I don't know. But they're always like kind of defensive at that ER. And they were like, yeah, sure, no problem. And they take my vitals. I tell them everything I went through, COVID, pneumonia. They thought it could be walking pneumonia, blah, blah, blah. And then when they call me back, I'm thinking they're going to put me in the room to just like sit there, because if you're not severe, they just put you in a room to sit, and then they take you to, no, he's like, we're giving you a bed. Then I start panicking inside. I'm like, oh my God, they're giving me a bed. Now, this is the hospital I was in 3 years ago for 2 weeks. So I can't breathe again. Of course, the doctor comes in, and he's cool, calm, and collected. Super calm, super chill. And he's like, yeah, you're, again, my air is at 98. My heart is fine. My blood pressure is fine. Even considering how freaked out I am, my blood pressure is fine. Everything is fine. He's like, but they won't share the information from the other hospital, so we're going to have to do all the tests again. But this time I didn't have to leave the bed. The X-ray person came to me. They did an X-ray. They did a CT scan. They did a sonogram of my heart. They um, they made me do a walking test. I mean, he was taking his time. He wasn't rushing. Like all these tests were kind of very. In the meantime, I sit up in the bed and my breathing starts to kind of get less and less and more, you know. And and he comes back and he goes, I have bad news and I have good news. I go, what's the bad news? He goes, the bad news, we can't find anything wrong with you. The good news is there's nothing wrong with you. But I'm not going to say to you that, he was very cool. Basically, he's like, I'm not going to say it's this, but could it be anxiety? Huh? Now, mind you, I've never had any anxiety type of things. I've always thought anxiety was like you're stressed, you're scared, that you have anxiety. I thought people were just referring anxiety to stress and scare, like a new term. I've never experienced this. And he goes, what if we give you a little something for anxiety and see if it calms you? And if it doesn't, we'll know. But if it does, we'll see. He goes, but I'm not a doctor to say, hey, there's nothing wrong with you. It's anxiety. I would never tell you that. I mean, he was the coolest, complete opposite of the other. And I totally got that read on him. And I said, well, I've never had anything like this. And if you saw my face, if you're watching YouTube, my face was like, I can't breathe. My eyes were scrunched up. And now I look back, I clearly look like I'm having anxiety. So he gives me the stuff. Of course, it starts to like do its thing, like a little cocktail, hey, I'm feeling pretty good. But I'm still a little freaked out. And he just starts talking to me. And I said, well, my read on you is that you think I have anxiety. And he said, what do you mean your read on me? What do you mean by that? I go, well, that's what I do. And he goes, oh, really? And he was interested. And he starts talking to me about it. And his sister does tarot. And she's into this stuff. And she's talking to her lamp because she thinks some dead relative is talking to her. I mean, I'm going on and on with this doctor. And all of a sudden, I feel completely normal. And I start to go, did I have anxiety? Was this in my head? And I just got very emotional because I have been doing these meditations and trying to learn about healing the body. But what has been showing me is that you have to look at the spirit. And it's not just a spirit, it's an electrical device that is running the body. And if it's whacked, if it gets short-circuited, if it has trauma and is beaten up, it's going to affect the physical. And he totally, I said, well, I love reading people. I don't feel this anxiety at all when I'm reading people. I feel totally fine. And he said, well, healer, heal thyself. We have to heal ourselves. And he included me like with him, like he's respecting what I do. Like I'm a healer like him. He was like, and he looked at me and he said, you can go home and you will be fine. I just needed to hear that. I said, that's what I need to hear because I'm scared I won't be fine because my mother died 10 days after I was born. My aunt went to the hospital sick at 16 and they discovered leukemia. She was admitted. She stayed in there for almost a year, got in remission, and she died. Meaning people I know who get sick in my life and they go to the doctor or the hospital, don't leave. My dad used to say this to me all the time. Oh, people don't leave the hospital. So this is my makeup. This is what's inside me. And remember, this is past. This is also past medical science and everything. And I know this intro is long, but it's important. Because what he did with his compassion and his empathy combined with his knowledge as a doctor is why it confirmed the two have to work together. And now I'm starting to recognize that when I start to feel something, and not to mention there's something else that has come up that I'm just concerned about. And I'm starting to realize that as I start to have that anxious feeling, I contribute it to something physical only recently because I had gone 5 years without getting COVID. And in my mind, I was like, this is it. I went 5 years and maybe it's going to go real bad for me. Who knows? Like, how is my body going to respond? And I had this whole narrative made up. But this is why it's important to me to do this. And this is why this is the new path. Every time when I've done this work, your sight changes. It goes from one thing to the other. And my new path that I am introducing is healing of the body. And I'm going to be talking about it. And now, what you don't know about me, some of you don't know, is I can see in people's bodies. I have do this in my private readings. I do not diagnose, but I can see. I can see. And I've told people things and they go to their doctor. I've just been afraid to embrace this and go further. I'm ready, baby, because I realize as people suffer with ailments every day, people suffer. Our biggest fear in life is getting sick, besides our fear of death. And just like I discovered that I could talk to the dead, and I saw so many people in pain when I went to a fake medium gallery who he was a fake, and I saw how he was hurting those people, and I vowed that I would help people. This is my new vow. And that's where I'm at. All right. Let's open up the Medium Fruit Cafe. I'm going to take a sip of my coffee. And we're going to go into Susan. This is Susan's third time. I think it's her third time. And I feel like her email was inspired by Anna Heat's last week's episode and very fitting to everything I'm talking about today. So let's get into it. Hello, Adela. I just listened to your podcast with Anna Heat and it inspired me to write in with my experience. I've been reluctant to write in because it's not a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Also, it may not be paranormal or supernatural, but I'll let you be the judge of that. If the content fits, then you are welcome to it. Thank you, Susan. For the listeners, I was born in 1972, Gen X all the way. That's right, baby, Gen X all the way. And I was obsessed with space travel and futurism for as long as I can remember. That's what people don't understand. Gen X, we have been obsessed with the future. We have wanted the robots. We have wanted the future. Same. I was obsessed with the Jetsons. I was not so into the Flintstones. I was like, I don't want animals like spitting all over my dishes with water. Futurism, for as long as I can remember, maybe there was a result of Star Wars and the Jetsons, or maybe I just remember being able to just zoom around without the burden of the body. Yes, I hear you, Susan. I also fiercely believed in magic. Aw. I'm right there with you. When I was in my 20s, I began the slow but steady journey of healing from some terrible trauma, mostly through therapy and 12-step recovery. Basically anything I could afford. I've made lots of progress, but something really unusual began happening last fall that I felt beyond the kind of experience I've had. Without bogging you down with more details, I was having a run-of-the-mill day, long day of work followed by a trip to the DMV. Very mundane. I was just getting in my car when I felt this overwhelming feeling of love and compassion for my father. My dad had passed away 2 years prior to this, and my relationship with my parents, my mom is still alive, was stressful at best. I suddenly saw my dad as a little boy. I had an immediate download of knowing that no one really saw him for who he was, for who he truly was, and the suffering that caused him. Now, all of this sounds very psychological, doesn't it? What's so strange is that it happened in seconds, and I had not been working on forgiveness or compassion in any of my healing spaces. It just came through me. I'm reading it just like she wrote it. My body felt different as well. It as if there was space in my joints. I felt like I was floating. The powerful sensation passed, but I felt like a different person, and the compassion remained, and I even expanded. I get the chills when she reading this. The same thing happened the next week, but the focus was on my mom. Honestly, Adela, I never thought in a million years that I would have any tender feelings again towards my mom. I understand that. She's responsible for some pretty heavy duty shit, yet I was once again overwhelmed with compassion for her. I was able to feel and see how she got to where she was. I didn't excuse her, but I was able to see her as just human. These experiences keep happening, but it's not something I can plan or cultivate. I feel so much compassionate towards myself and others and more relaxed and myself and more relaxed in general. This unplanned and unexpected feelings of love just seem to flow through me. I guess you could say my consciousness is expanding. But I wonder, there is something more going on. It feels like it's co-created, if that makes any sense. Thank you for sharing your experience at the hospital. I also find that it's not the famous gurus who helped me. I did already tell the story. Who helped me, but rather a smile from a fellow human or an honest exchange from a friend that has been powerful. Like I said, you are welcome to use this any way you like. Well, I did already tell the story, but I needed to tell it again to kind of connect the dots of what's happened recently. And to be honest, I have lost track of how many of time, apparently. But let's hear. I just love that she shared this because I do feel like healing comes through you, and it comes in a way that we least usually expect. And when we open up to the spirit and the body, the two can finally work together. But let's hear what she had to say. We had a wonderful, wonderful interaction. Okay, hello everybody. So, welcome back to the House Medium. And again, I mean, not that anybody went away, but I have Susan who has been on here before. But I don't know. Hi. I don't
No,
know if she's been on here video though.
I don't
So
think so.
that's new. Yeah. So for those of you who are listening at home, this will be available on YouTube. Um, if you notice me having these gloves, this is called I've become a germaphobe because I'm going out somewhere for my son's birthday next week and I don't want to touch anything. So I have these long gloves that I'm testing out on today. So I'm just putting that out there, Susan, so people don't think
I
I'm
mean, it
trying to
kind of
look
looks sexy. I don't know what you
because
were
I'm
going
trying to be
for.
like fancy with my drink.
Yeah, I think it works. I think you could travel with that look. You could
Listen,
go.
we're going to medieval times, so I feel like
Yeah,
right? It'll be kind
I
of
do.
like, yeah,
Yeah,
kind of
it's high
styling.
fashion, it's low fashion,
It's
it's
high
streetwear,
fashion.
it's everything.
Thank you. And it doesn't look like I'm too crazy. Like,
No,
because
not at
my
all.
other gloves that I had on, let me make sure um, oops, I'm touching the wrong button. The other gloves I had on when I went out into the world were the short gloves and I had a mask and I definitely felt like I looked
Yeah,
a
not
little
right.
paranoid.
Right.
I was like, let me get my debit card. And people were like, okay. Because I didn't look fashionable at all. And this is California. It's if it was somewhere else, no one would even care.
No one would
But
care.
California is not that cold.
Yeah.
How is it where you are? How's the weather? Let's talk about the weather first before
Oh
we
my
get
gosh.
into it.
Yeah. Okay. So today is February 16th, and
Yes.
we have had a lot of snow lately. It's beautiful. It is absolutely a winter wonderland.
Oh,
Yeah. And I'm in the
okay.
Detroit area, and it's stunning. It's gorgeous. A plus.
A plus.
Yeah.
So you don't mind trekking during getting out into the snow and
I really
treacherous?
don't. I think, it's that old adage of, I can't remember how it goes, but like if you're, there's no bad weather, there's only, you know, whatever, if you're not prepared for the weather, then it sucks. But no, I have really good boots. I have a great coat, great mittens, everything. Like, you know what? It sucks if vanity is your problem, because
Oh.
to be
Mm.
comfortable, yeah, I know this will not be your cup of tea, but if you are okay with
Cup of coffee now, Susan, because I finally could taste it.
yeah,
Very
yay,
little. But
taste,
no, I have been in the snow, by the way. Just so you know, I lived in New York and I lived in Ohio for a year, which is
yeah,
close to your weather, right?
yeah, sure, sure, yeah. But if you're okay with looking frumpy for a couple months, then you're good, and I don't
But
care.
you can look like stylish and keep warm, right?
I cannot. I personally, no matter what, I can't pull it off.
We all want to hear from you. What tips can you send us? Send send to the house medium. I'm gonna tag Susan. Send us tips for Susan that she can, have a little style with
Yeah, just a
her
little.
frumpiness
Yeah, just a little. Just I want to take it from
in
like
the winter.
in the winter, and I don't maybe I'm like 10 out of 10. I'm probably at a 3. So just
Okay.
if I could just make it up to like a 4 or a 5 in hot ones,
Yes.
that would be fine.
Because are you dating? I just asked her a personal question.
No.
Because that's what we're thinking. We're thinking if we give her a little not to say she can't attract somebody in her frumpiness, but maybe she'll have a little confidence. So, is it the hat? Like, what's your hat game? What's your glove game?
Oh, my hat is a knitted hat from a little old lady, and it looks.
Oh, I love that though. See, I love it.
I know,
Okay,
it's so cute, and then my gloves are like
thick.
big poofy gloves. Like they're good for scraping the windshield, you know.
Okay.
But my therapist asked me recently. She said, if you were gonna, you know, if you were gonna date somebody, like what would be the ideal person? And I was like, well, somebody that like doesn't call me or talk to me or come over. That would be my, and I was like, I wait, I just
Something is like invisible
it's invisible.
and then reappears with a push of a. I think of them and they appear, or I push a button
And then poof.
and then don't even talk to me. Did you bring me
Yeah,
food?
don't talk. I think that's it. I think I just described my DoorDash. I think my DoorDash is great.
That's got to be a clip. That's got to be a clip.
I don't care. I'm
Welcome to Gen X humor. This is Gen X humor all the way.
like I'm like what's the term? Um Pansexual. I'm
Yeah.
pansexual for anybody that brings me food. And then me. Bye.
So basically, you're down. You should be dating DoorDash. You should be
Yeah.
scrolling DoorDash people. If there was a way where
Right.
you could see the delivery DoorDash, you'd be
That's what
swiping.
they look like.
So you just want somebody who's going to bring you food and leave. Okay. So what did your therapist say to this? Because I could only imagine. They're
Um
like,
she
okay.
chuckled. She was like, "Okay, I'm not going to push that once. That's obviously like that door is closed."
You're like, don't talk to me. Don't look at me.
Don't
Don't
leave.
even breathe my way. However, if you leave food on the doorstep, we might have a date. And that
Yeah,
probably was the date.
that was the date. Kitty litter. I need kitty litter.
And if you do, if you provide kitty litter, we just know
Woo!
that was an intimate moment.
Right.
It's like kissing for
I'll
you.
give you a thumbs up from the doorway.
Okay, so we don't want to up the winter game for dating, clearly, because your DoorDash person doesn't care, and you don't have to see them. So let maybe just for you, I because I feel like when I lived in New York, when I first went to New York, and I know everybody. So what? We're going on sidetrack. Just enjoy it. What are you doing? Driving? You're fine.
This is my
So
specialty is getting people off track. My
I like it. I like it because I get to like this is what I need to stick to, and I think like the fun stuff comes out
yeah.
this way. But I was when I lived in New York. When I first went to New York, I was like 18.
Oh,
Um,
baby.
yes, I went to New York at 18 with okay. This is gonna okay. Everybody, just no judge. Okay,
Oh,
okay. It was a school trip from California. I went to a private school. Yes, they had a lot of money. Does that mean we had a lot of money? We were in the middle. They were in the upper. They were like, I went to school. I told you guys this Harrison Ford's kids, that caliber. Very tiny, tiny private school, not religious. It was a Waldorf school. And their idea of a senior trip was to go see the other Waldorf school
oh, okay.
in New York, and they were going to host us. My mom was sick and she was dying at the time, not to bring the mood down. And she was literally like on her deathbed. And she's from New York and never got a chance to go back to New York. So she kind of, I didn't want to go, but she wanted me to go. And then I went. Okay, so I go to New York for the first time, fell in love with it because I was raised by New Yorkers, my grandmother, all New Yorkers. And my uncle, my mother, when I refer to my aunt who raised me, and my uncle who raised me, he's from where you are, Detroit. And he completely said the opposite of you. He's like, I will never do the cold. Screw, he
Yeah.
didn't curse, but he said, not never do the cold. But anyway, the first time I went to New York, I fell in love with it. Didn't really know what I was doing, because you're just there. You don't really know anything's about. Went back on my own, 19, and I quickly assessed being like on my own, working. This is expensive place to live and
Oh,
struggle in because of the winters. And
yes.
I also assessed the people who had like nice fancy coats and boots. I'm like, oh, okay, there's a class system here.
Yeah.
It became very clear.
Yeah. You
The
see it.
people who had money had like the best coats and these like amazing leather gloves and boots, and they slipped into like heated seated cars. They weren't taking
Yeah.
cabs. And I was like, okay, so I'm from California. You can, at the time, it's gotten colder here than it used to be. But at the time, I can just get by with t shirts and jeans all year round. At that time, that would have cost me $15
Right.
worth of clothes, $20 because I shopped at thrift shops. And I assessed quickly, the class system gets very clear because of winter. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely. Yeah. You can really see the hierarchy.
The hierarchy.
The cars that people wear or
The
drive.
cars, yeah. People who live in areas where they just have people clearing the snow and putting salt. Like if you vastly go to another area and it looks like shit hit the fan. Even
Yes.
in New York, I was like, I lived in Harlem and I was like, wow, it's sludgy. But then I hit down in, into the main, like into like Upper West Side or something, all clear. So it's very different. The
Yeah.
winter divides.
Um, heated driveways.
Heated driveways, heated floors. Yeah. See,
That
so
people
that's why my assessment was easier to struggle in Los Angeles
I think so
because
too. I think so too, and it is because the like everybody's wearing t-shirt, jeans, and
mhm, yeah,
everybody's
and
wearing.
you don't have to get through seasons like the.
No,
I mean, you do have like summer, but pretty much even if you live in a very kind of poorish, not so great apartment area, that's going to have at least a wall air conditioner.
yes,
It's what I mean? So
yeah,
you're gonna it's I don't know, it's just very different, I've noticed. But
yeah,
anyway, let's get to your email.
yeah. Okay,
Okay? So you were inspired by Anahit.
Yeah, very much.
And thanks, Anahit. And this is going to be a little bit similar to Anahit's story, where it's a story, kind of a storytelling. This isn't really so much like, oh, I had this thing happen to me in the middle of the night, and then this happened and this happened. Like these kind of consecutive things. It's more of like an experience. And a reason I wanted to have Susan on is because it's very fitting to the things that I've been talking to everybody about, that I'm learning, which is learning about healing and learning about how to heal. And I just posted a class for my Patreon. Sacred Scholars is up on the first class on healing, but also just healing comes in many different layers, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, and how they all affect each other, and just kind of the magicalness of all of that. So, why don't you go ahead and take us through what you experienced?
Sure. Thank you, by the way, for having me on.
Yeah,
And
no,
yeah,
thank you for
I
coming.
yeah, sure. I did hesitate with emailing you because of exactly what you said. It's like this isn't the story. This doesn't have a beginning, middle, and end. But um, I just was like, I'll just throw it out there and see if it lands somewhere. But okay, so this was last fall, and it was still a just very beautiful fall day in Michigan. And I had left work. I was at the we call it the Secretary of State out here, which is the DMV. So I was
Mm-hmm.
doing like the most mundane bullshit, like it was not
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't like a fantastic day. But I got into my car. All right, so I was overwhelmed with these. It was a physical sensation, and it just felt like it was flowing through me, and I had an abundance of love and compassion for my dad. And
Mm-hmm.
um, my dad, he has been passed for a couple years, but it was we were not in communication. I'm 52 now. I'll be 53 pretty soon. But for the past 10 or 12 years of his life, we were not in communication. It had been with my mom and dad, it had been a very tumultuous, it had not been easy situation. And um, I wasn't working on this in therapy. I wasn't, reading books about forgiveness or compassion or anything like that.
Right.
Um, I was just, as far as my own healing, I was just trying to kind of recover from my own divorce that happened, not so long ago. So I wasn't thinking about my parents, but I saw my dad as a little boy, and I saw him as faultless.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw it was just this complete download of knowing that my dad, his whole life, no one ever saw him for who he truly was.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt so much love and compassion for him. I didn't feel pity, and it didn't make the shitty things go away either. Like that. It's not like the both the realities were still there. Do you know what I mean? Like it wasn't
Yeah.
like I went off into this
Right.
fairy.
It wasn't like suddenly you were like, oh, he's like, oh, I understand now. He's amazing. It was like, no, I see
I
both
see.
sides.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I see you fully.
Mm-hmm.
And and I thought, well, maybe this is just a fluke. But for the next 2 weeks, I kept checking in with myself, and I was like, no, I still feel that way. I still feel like I see his innocence as just a human, and
Mm-hmm.
I see all of it. I see the whole picture. And then the big kicker was a couple weeks after that, I had the same experience, but it was around my mom. And my mom and that was a much more intense and volatile relationship. And I saw her as just I saw her as a little tiny girl, and I saw what she was up against in her childhood, and it was not rough. It was not, excuse me, it
I
was
mean, it
not,
was rough.
yeah,
It
it
was
was.
not easy. Yeah.
And again, I'm not saying she's blameless. Like some shit went down,
Mm-hmm.
some shit seriously went down, but it was an emotional experience. It was spiritual. It was physical, and it changed the way that I started viewing. myself and other people. Um, and then I've been having these experiences since then where all of a sudden I will like this happened one time. I was at lunch, I was at school, the teacher's lounge, and all of a sudden I was just filled with so much love and compassion that I had to just put my head down. And I was at the same, I was so nervous that people were going to be like, "Are you okay?" Luckily, it was kind of like I became invisible, and I just sat there and
You pull all your energy into yourself. That's what
yeah,
we call the cloaking.
that's what it felt like. That's the word. I
Mm-hmm.
just went in and I felt it. And since then, I still have these experiences. And I've talked to other friends of mine, the people that I really, really trust, people like in my inner circle. And um, I don't know what it is, but I feel like it flows through me. But it doesn't feel like it's coming just from me. It doesn't feel like it's coming just from outside. It feels like the word I've been thinking of is co-created. And just
Mm.
these instances of like deep, deep trauma and hatred have just been lifted so that
Mm.
I feel much lighter as a person and much more accepting of like just more acceptance. And
Right.
so it's and the other thing I was thinking about, when you emailed me back, I was like, oh, I think I've been having these experiences all my life. I just haven't recognized them. And I remember having these when I was really little. And I'd be, when kids are just like real quiet
Right.
and like they
Space
kind of
out.
just space out, they get on the floor and they're just kind of,
Mm-hmm.
I remember
Yes.
being like that and being flooded with like not really in my body.
Yes.
And I also had this experience once where, and I think I talked to you about this once, where in the middle of the night, I had this like laser beam feeling of love, just like,
Mm-hmm.
and it scared the hell out of me. But I woke
Mm-hmm.
up saying, it felt like a language that I didn't know. I was speaking a different language. But all these experiences of love, just of just truly overwhelming. And I think like kind of the bottom line for me is that when it comes to my family, my parents, who, it's still not easy, but I remember who I was before the world got hold of me. And I kind of like got that person back. I got that little baby who just wanted to love her mom and dad.
Right.
And I just was just a baby who loved. So I feel like that is very much present for me now. So, like I said, it's not a story. I don't even know what to do with it, but that's kind of the moment right now.
What you're describing is um, kind of a combination. What I see is that it's a combination of you becoming not only self-aware of who you really are before your family and your friends and everything and the world in general got to you and kind of told you this is who you are. It's hard to. I know what you're saying, and I'm gonna try to use words for you to maybe help people understand. And I think people already probably understand. But it's this overwhelming feeling where you're kind of free because you realize you're not under the thumb of what your parents are. It's like this awareness whenever both your parents have passed, or are they both here?
Just my dad has passed. My mom is still
They're
alive.
still here. So
Yeah.
when you're trying to resolve things with somebody when they pass, I always tell people it's much easier to resolve things with someone when they're still here. Then you never get to go through the stage with that parent of let me explain some things that you did to me, let me go through that. Not that that always works.
Yeah.
Um, and you come to that resolve when they're alive, like maybe they're not going to understand it, but I'm going to like claim myself back for myself. But I also can see they chose not to grow and realize these things about themselves. But when someone dies, you kind of have to do it on your own. So if someone's here, let's say you would try to confront them with something and they're like, I don't want to hear it. Then you go, okay, I get it. I know what I'm dealing with. You want to live in denial. You don't want to hear what you did to me and how you hurt me. So I guess I can't converse with you any longer. Maybe you distance yourself, maybe you cut them off, but at least you got your answer. But when
Yeah.
someone dies and you don't get to the stage of, hey, I really understand this has happened to me and it hurt me and I really want to confront this person now. Like maybe I didn't know why I had all these issues, or I have emotional issues or have trauma, but I'm starting to realize it might have come from this place and I want to talk about it with the person. You can't when they died. So you kind of have to do it on your own. So it's a lot harder. It takes a lot longer to kind of come to an awareness of, oh, you were just like some guy who got hooked up with some lady and got, her knocked up and had me, didn't really know what the hell you were doing, and did some pretty bad job at it a lot of the time, if that's the case. And I didn't get a chance to realize that for a long time, and then once you realize that, you can kind of let go of expectation of anything more. And then you go, maybe I can go back to me and just realize I am so happy that I can just live my life the way I want to live it without trying to get this person to see me or understand me, because I've built them up to be this. Like, people tend to think people are supposed to know these things just because they became a parent. I always say this to people and even to my own kid. I don't trust people just because they're a parent. Even before I had kids, it doesn't mean anything to me. Oh, well, they're a mom and dad. Who cares? What kind of mom and dad are they? That doesn't mean anything to me. In other words, people are people. But when you're a kid, you stop that has been portrayed by your parents. If they have done harm to you and if there's any kind of abuse or any of those things, then you don't trust them, of course, and then you also don't even trust yourself because no one's validated it to you. So it takes you a lot of years to say, I don't really need them to validate. Yeah, they did. I get it. I have compassion. I have love for who they are, but I still am going to have to just claim myself back
Yeah.
as a whole person separated from them. It's like you get freed.
Yes.
By seeing it. It's like something for you suddenly kind of freed yourself in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even just to add, sorry to interrupt, but even I wanted to make it clear, because this does connect to the paranormal. You believe it or not, that realm, they're trying to figure out what happened too, and they're trying to telepathically let you know. And you could choose to keep that line closed if you want. And I feel like in that moment, you were like, okay, I'm ready to hear it.
Yeah. Oh.
The only reason why I know this is because I have many parents on the other side. My mom, my birth mother, who died 10 days after I was born. Then my aunt who raised me, who died when I was 18. My uncle who died 10 years later. And then my biological father is dead. But when my aunt tried to talk to me after I started to realize I had this ability, I could hear her. And she would say, can you please hear me out? And I'm like, no. I would tell her, no, I won't. Okay. I don't want to hear you out. So
Yeah.
I knew I would hear her because of my abilities. And then I would say, no. For years. Sometimes I would go, I think I kind of understand you more. Oh, I'm so glad. But that's it. Don't get excited. Kind of like what you're describing. Like, don't think I didn't forget. Right? So that's what, and then there's been times where something overcomes me and I go, okay, I think I went another layer of understanding, maybe forgiveness, maybe realizing you really do feel like you grew, because what's happening is in that realm, your father is going through layers of growth and evolvement. And every time he goes to another layer, he's trying to resolve something with you. That's what people don't understand. They'll try to reach out. But if there's been some problems,
Yeah.
that door has been closed.
Right.
Something in you said, okay, I'm going to open the door. And then you felt everything he was trying to say. And you're like, okay, but I didn't say I'm going to forget everything. And, I'm going to learn to see you for who I see it now, but it doesn't mean I'm just going to wash away everything you did. But on a paranormal level, that realm is always trying to, for a lack, and it may sound trite, better word, is make amends with you. But it doesn't mean, so people always ask me this all the time, do I have to because, I'm pissed at them? Or no, you don't. But I feel like you had this little opening.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. That really makes sense. And I really identify with you telling your mom, your biological aunt, like, no, thank you. I think that's
Several times.
Several times.
I mean, she's been dead for 30 years.
Yeah.
Over 30 years. And several times I was like, nope. And it's been in layers. Okay, I'm ready. Okay, maybe a little bit more. Okay, a little bit more. So it's your choice.
Yes. Yeah, and I think, the times where I felt this, and I think freedom is the right thing, like this freedom of like, because it's expansive. I'm like, oh, I don't have to live under anybody's paradigm, not
right.
My parents, not like any structure or anything like that. Even though, when we were joking about dating, it's like, I just love knowing that I can do exactly what I want to do. Like I think it's, really having autonomy over my own life.
Right.
But and it does feel like the way you're describing it, like that makes sense to me, that it is not just me working on my stuff, but there is another layer, another dimension that's working with me.
Because there's a connection between you. So kind of imagine it like I just did a reading where someone described it so well, and I was like, I should have written it down. But kind of imagine it like if he's seeing you like your play, what your connection to him is like the same connection that's coming back. Sorry, it's coming back, everybody. It's not the same as a mother and a daughter because the mother carries the child, but when you're having a baby and there's a baby, in the womb, and you feel like the baby's going to be born, and you're like, oh, I have a connection to this baby, even though I don't know this baby. You still feel like you have a connection to the baby, even though you can't see the baby.
Yeah.
Well, how they feel is that even though you can't see them, they still have a connection to you. So it's the same thing for them. They're like, she's flopping around doing her life and just thinking she's unaware of me completely. Just like we kind of believe babies are not really aware of us, but we're connecting with them. We can't see the baby. We can't see them like we're sitting there talking to them. They're in your womb, but as a mother, you love the baby. You feel connected to the baby. The father feels connected to the baby. There's an unseen energy running through everyone. When someone dies, that doesn't die. The only thing that's happening is if you say, I don't want to have that connection with you anymore. And you can start cutting those connections off or turning it down, depending on your circumstances. So for your father, he's growing and learning all kinds of things, watching his daughter grow and learn. And he's like, I still feel connected to you. Nothing, even though you don't see me, I still very much can see what you're going through and what you're experiencing. And I'm growing and I'm learning, but I get it if you can't see me, because our world, for one, blocks it. And for two, you just may not want to see him. So that's where the analogy changes, because now we're talking in the choosing not to see. You don't want to connect to him. But for him, nothing's changed. So all he can do is wait till you're ready. So he can't do anything else. That is why you resolve things. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about your father.
Yeah.
That's why the point of life is so that we can learn and grow along the way, not go, I'm just going to create all havoc and all hell and, just do whatever I want and then hope for the best at the end. No, you're supposed to be paying attention to things. You're supposed to kind of check in with yourself. Like truly, spirituality is just really like looking in yourself and going, what did I screw up here? Should I have learned this here? Should I have learned that here? But a lot of people just kind of never think about it, just do whatever. And then when they die, that's why sometimes people on their deathbed are like, oh shit, I didn't pay attention.
Yeah.
And some people aren't, because I do tons of readings where they're like, I feel okay. I feel like I did all the things I wanted and I tried my best. I really did try to do all the things. And some people are like, holy shit, all I cared about was like this very superficial thing. I get it now. So my point is, because when you die, you're going over all those things. For your father, he's like, I didn't think of any of these things before. And now I'm shut out from her. And I can't do anything about it. One, I'm in a land that land refuses to see.
Yeah.
So that makes it hard. And two, because of our connection, she's definitely not going to hear me.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you must have worked on some things with yourself, and you said, okay, I'll creak the window open a little bit.
What's interesting is because the day before this happened, I had this student who, a little second grade boy who is absolutely nothing like my dad in spirit, physicality, nothing. But what I was given is this glimpse into this little guy. He's just this little guy who's always in trouble, just kind of a hot mess. And I was given this kind of picture of him, which was every day of his little life, his heart has been stomped on. And I just had all this compassion for this little boy who's still not like that didn't change him at all, but it just made me feel like a little bit softer. My heart warmed up to him. Like, this guy just has never known kindness. And it moved me. And again, like the vision of that little boy kind of, well, it fed into the vision I had with my dad of like, it's the same cycle that you're seeing with this little boy who he's not my family. Like, someday he'll go to a different school and we'll forget about each other. But he's living under the same cycle, the same regime that my dad, which is like so much abuse and like religious abuse, all the abuses, and so I think like, oh, that's definitely connected. And I wonder if just because I do really think about my dad a lot. I do think about him, like he I could make a long list of how he didn't show up for me as a dad, but he taught me the love of learning. Like he was learning,
Mm-hmm.
he loved learning, he loved reading. And I mean, I can't think of a better gift to give your child than the love of learning. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's what makes you a truly autonomous person is however you learn, whether it's through reading books or, watching YouTube videos or whatever. Like that love of learning, like that has served me very, very, very well in this life.
Well, I feel like what happened is when you saw that little boy, something triggered, and a lot of times that realm can kind of talk to you telepathically, like, this is similar to me, and it's not to like say, oh, just forgive me. I'm just trying to get you to understand. A lot of times, in most of the time in my medium readings, I will say to people, your parent or whoever wants to explain themselves, they're not defending it. They're not justifying it. They just want you to know what happened because we don't talk about it. Like, people don't say to their kids, listen, when I was a kid, they may say it in jest, but they'll say, I never learned forgiveness, or I never learned compassion, or I never learned how to say I love you. So yes, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not really great at that as a parent, but I'm working on it. The problem with parenting and relationships in general, we're very afraid to just admit our flaws and our weaknesses. And I think with children, the most important thing is if you're just honest with them, you're like, yeah, I'm kind of screwed up in this area and I'm going to do the best I can, because you demystify the idea that parents are gods, because that's the religious connotation, that parents are gods and goddesses and that they know all. If you demystify and say, I know a lot because I've lived on this planet for a while, but I'm very flawed and I'm going to try to work on it. And that's what I'm saying. A lot of times, so much of the time in my readings, they're saying, I didn't think to do that till now
Yeah.
that I'm dead. And so they're going, wow, what if I did think to do that while I was alive? How different my relationships would have been. So what you're doing is kind of having that conversation, I feel, telepathically with your dad, where he's going, yeah, you see that kid? That was kind of like me. And then I grew up and had a kid. Can you imagine that kid right now with no help, no counseling, no nothing?
No, nothing. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And this really this softens my heart. And I don't know, I feel like just talking about it really helps me to know him more. And I think it also kind of gives me like, like our relationship's not over,
Yes.
We can
That's
still,
a very good note to end on, because I want the message I'm always trying to give to people is that it's not over. It's just very different. And to even kind of throw myself again as example, I have had several layers with my aunt where, like, you're out, don't even talk. And then she gets excited. All right, I want to hear you talk. And I'm like, all right, that's enough. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I do kind of understand. Like, my aunt was like very young. She was, for so to speak, she had 3 children and she had a sick husband, and then her sister died and she raised me, and she did a terrible job at it, but she did a lot of great things about it. And then I go, wait a minute, she was kind of a mess. I mean, she lost her sister and her best friend in the world, and now all this pressure on her to, like, they were very different. My mother was free-spirited, just this free-spirited type that wanted to be an actress and just let her kids do whatever they want. And then my aunt was like very rigid. These are the roles. They were totally different. And her realizing, oh, I'm raising my sister's kid, but I'm probably not as fun as she was. She was the fun aunt, I start to kind of like have those things, and then I let the little door open and go, okay. And then she's like, okay, I appreciate it. And then I'm like, but then you did this. Door shut, right? Which is what I've done several times. And that's the only way I feel is real, because I, like you said at the beginning, you felt all these things because I want that everyone to be clear, and I want Susan to be clear. It doesn't mean you just take an eraser and go, oh, that's understandable to all these things you did. No, you say, I'm starting to understand you a little bit more and understand what was going on, but don't think that doesn't mean it didn't affect me, and I'm still dealing with the effects of that. But I am kind of letting go of the idea that maybe you knew what the hell you were doing to me and did it anyway, because maybe that's what you resolved. Maybe you're resolving, like, oh, you just kind of really were like that little kid who's just kind of acting out.
Yeah. And no one is ever one thing, right? Like,
Mm-mm.
no one's ever just
No,
bad or good.
no one's one thing. It's very different if someone's diabolically doing something and someone is just, we're all a little screwed up, we're all a little crazy, we're all a little flawed, and we all are trying to figure it out. And the resources we have, we know, as because we're Gen Xers here, our parents did not have. It was pretty much just put up and shut up for them. There was no mental health care. There was no Oprah shows to tell them stuff. There was no, our generation was kind of being exposed to that for the first time, and we barely had that as well. So I feel like we just kind of had the awareness of, like, there's got to be a better way than just stuffing everything all down and just swallowing it, So I feel like this was kind of like a beginning of a connection between you and him.
I think so too. I'm really excited. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
And I am also to promote your new class on Patreon. Like, I want to do more of this work. I want to do more of, like, just opening my heart at the right time when I'm ready, because I think the reward is, like, I felt like was
well, the class I'm doing on Patreon on healing is actually physical healing. However, what I've been learning, and I'll talk, and everyone heard me talk about this earlier on this podcast before you, is the physical and the mental and the spiritual. These are two separate bodies that you have to work with. But I've been really nervous about, for a long time, getting into physical healing, but now I'm venturing into that. But it is connected to the spirit body as well. Yeah, but I have a lot of other stuff too on Patreon about healing. But yeah, people, I'll explain a little bit. I get into it more in the class, but I am going to continue to talk about it. But the physical and the spirit body are treated as separate entities, and then I get into how they're not and how they affect each other. So that's pretty much it. Thank you for coming on, Susan. This was very lovely.
Thank you for this was kind of a tough one to share, but I really appreciate you.
I feel like it's going to help a lot of people, and that's why I wanted to share mine, so that you weren't alone.
Yeah.
Because you're not. Because trust me.
Right. I know.
Trust me. I have that little round you had, I've had several rounds with people on the other side that I've been like, don't get too excited because we had that little moment. Okay, I'll get back to you when I'm ready for another one. Okay, because I've literally said that. Oh, you're ready? She's listening. And I go, and scene. Oh, I'll come back. We'll circle back. Yeah, so you got to do it in steps.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Susan.
Adela.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Okay, hold on. There we go. Wasn't that lovely? Just wonderful. I felt like it was just so validating in so many ways. And I always do try to tell people that healing, you want to resolve things with the living. It is very hard to resolve with the dead. Now you can, and I can help you. And that's what the work I do. But trust me, if you can do it with them, here if you can, if you're capable. So much easier. There's one tidbit that she shared with me off air because she didn't really want to get into details of something that did happen, but something happened between her and her mom where her mom gave her a gift. She let me, she's was okay with me sharing this. I just won't get into the details. Her mom gave her a gift that she was unexpecting, that was very, very important and wonderful and helped her in her life. And I tried to tell her that that is how the dead work. They kind of whisper and influence others to kind of let them know, hey, you might want to do this, you might want to do that. Meaning her father, who she was feeling that wonderful healing and energy coming through her, starts to talk and influence her mom to say, hey, this may be something that can help her. And this is how they work most of the time. They'll influence and kind of push an idea, and we're not even realizing it. Kind of say, hey, you might want to talk to this person, or you might want to try this. And she said she was so shocked at this. Her out of the blue, her mother contacted her out of the blue to say, hey, I want to do this for you. Now, this was very vulnerable for Susan because she was like, wow, I shared a lot. She didn't share like all the details. So I just want to reassure her once again. She just shared a vague experience. And remember, vulnerability is very hard for both of us. Me sharing those things that I shared with you, I hope it helped. And I'm sorry if I shared it yet again. But being vulnerable helps us to connect with each other, and we can still have our boundaries and privacy on different things. But yes, I feel like this is kind of in line with what every year the other side tells me. Here's a lesson that people need to know this year. Last year it was all about women and women understanding the sacrifices that women went through, things that women gave up. What I mean by that is grandmothers and mothers that said, I lived a life I didn't really want to live, and I did it because I had to and I had no choice. So please understand that and don't repeat that for yourself. And this year it's been about taking care of yourself, about slowing down, about not feeling like you have to do everything all at once, that you can just pace yourself, heal thyself, things like this. So I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. So send me those emails. I also want to remind people about the mentorship that I do, because I've been getting quite a few and I enjoy it so much. If you're looking to mentor, remember it could either be about your gifts, it could be about change in life, it could be about healing process that we're talking about. I make it very unique to you, and you schedule them on your own time so that there's no pressure. And go ahead and check out my Patreon for all the things that I post on there, and my Instagram. And please leave a review and, help a sister out. Follow yourself. Follow no one. I really enjoy this. See you soon. Oh, and listen to your inner voice.